conference, the president said he will stay in the race until his staff says there's no way he can win.
No one's saying that. No poll says that.
He also fielded a question about whether Democratic delegates can vote their conscience at the August convention.
If all of a sudden I show up at the convention, everybody says we want somebody else, that's the democratic process.
It's not going to happen.
The president said there's no indication that he can't get the job done. Greg Clugston, the White House.
Actor Alec Baldwin's involuntary manslaughter trial in New Mexico was put on hold Friday.
Alec Baldwin's involuntary manslaughter trial was put on hold while the judge considers a defense motion to dismiss the case over disputed ammunition.
I'm going to recess you for the day.
Judge Mary Marlo Sommer sent the jury home after a hearing on the issue that was supposed to precede resumption of the trial, raised more questions, and called for further testimony. The defense filed its motion over what it says is ammunition evidence the prosecution hid from them that may be related to the shooting death of cinematographer Helena Hutchins on the set of the film Rust in 2021. I'm Haya Panjwani.
This summer's extreme heat is raising the danger of heat-related illnesses and threatening health in a more subtle way by amplifying the side effects of many common medications. Blood pressure medications can lead to dehydration. Beta blockers for heart conditions can decrease blood flow to the skin and make you less aware of dangerous heat. And some antidepressants can hinder your ability to stay cool. On Wall Street, the Dow up by 247 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Hi, everyone. If you've been injured in an accident that was not your fault, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by to answer your questions for free. Call now and find out if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-504-8790. I'm here with spokesman John Wolf. So, John, tell everyone listening who should call right now.
Well, Maria, first off, thank you for having me here. It's always nice to answer the listeners' questions. Now, as far as who should call in, anyone who's been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, give us a call right now. 800-504-8790. You'll find out if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth.
Thanks, John. You heard it, folks. Take advantage of this opportunity and call now. 800-504-8790.
Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states. 5.
Here's the Wall Street Business Report.
Stocks ended higher after some mixed signals on big banks' profits, and inflation did little to dent Wall Street's belief that easier interest rates are on the way. The S&P 500 rose 0.6% in a widespread rally, closing in its fifth winning week in the last 6. The Dow Jones Industrial Average climbed 0.6%, and the Nasdaq Composite rose 0.6% also. Small company stocks outpaced the rest of the market. The Dow up 247 points to finish at 40,000. The Nasdaq gained 115 to 18,398. The S&P 500 added 30 points to 56.15. New York oil fell 41 cents to $82.21 per barrel. For the Wall Street Business Report, I'm John Scott.
News and analysis at townhall.com.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here's your weekend forecast. Cloudy tonight, the low temp of 74. Tomorrow we'll see more clouds than sunshine. The high is back up to 95, and we have a 30% chance of some scattered showers in the afternoon. Sunday definitely nicer. Mostly sunny all day long, up to 97, and by Monday we'll be again flirting with triple-digit temperatures. Have a great weekend. I'm Cal Moss with your On Point local weather.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
Grills, outdoor kitchens, fireplaces. Summer sizzle starts with Bart. This is 107 The Point. Please press button now. No, number 1.
This is Sports Talk with Phil Kornblut and Chris Bergen. Sports Talk is heard across the state on radio affiliates of the Sports Talk Media Network and is streaming live on SportsTalkSC.com, as well as Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. The South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number to call in is 888-898-2525. That's 898-2525. Now, here are Phil and Chris with tonight's edition of Sports Talk.
And good evening, everyone. Welcome into Sports Talk on the final night you'll have to endure without Phil Kornblut. He will return to your lives on Monday from Dallas at SEC Media Days, where the focus will be on Oklahoma and Texas joining the SEC, joining that party, and, of course, all the things that Shane Beamer will have to say on Monday. And then Phil Kornblut, if we can pry it out of him, he can regale us with stories of, I assume, him shooting a 69 at Caledonia, and running shirtless down Ocean Boulevard, and just living it up Margaritaville style the last 2 weeks. But until then, Matt Smith, Chris Bergen, we will captain the ship in his stead. Josh Cohen is here as well, running the board for us, and we invite you to join us tonight at 888-898-2525. A very busy show. There is some news to get to, although I think most of us are tired of hearing about court cases and would rather talk football, so we will fly through that part briefly. Just to let you know, Judge Gravely in Pickens County has ruled in Clemson's favor, and that Clemson has established a case for specific jurisdiction, which means Clemson's case against the ACC will continue in Pickens County. Meanwhile, the ACC's case against Clemson will continue in Mecklenburg County. Florida State and the ACC are also at odds. That court case will be going on in the state of Florida. We're all caught up. We'll catch back up with you when the Supreme Court has to get involved. In the meantime, let's bring Chris Bergen in. Chris, you can tell us about what's been on your mind from a sports perspective. I know we have some really good guests. And then also, you brought to our attention Dawn Staley's words as she accepted an award last night for winning the award for perseverance, the Jimmy V Award for perseverance last night. And you happened to hear that speech, and you said, "Oh, it's something we probably ought to get to tonight."
I think so. Yeah, I agree. And we'll get to that in just a little bit. But you were talking about Phil spending time on Margaritaville. One thing he probably needs to do is get back to resurrect his Yankees. I'm not sure they've won a series since he went on vacation. And this was a team at one point in time that had the best record in Major League Baseball. And I think they dropped 8 straight series heading into the All-Star break. Not the way you want to hit the Midsummer Classic, I don't think, if you're a Yankees fan.
Don't we learn?
And I know that's got to be driving Corn nuts.
Oh, it is, because he wanted to be able, to stay up late, watch the Yankees, and he's thinking, "Oh, this is good. I'll get to watch all of Aaron Judge's at bats." But it hasn't gone the way he had hoped. It's still a devastating lineup that features Juan Soto and Aaron Judge. But I think we're reminded every now and then through these dog days of summer just how long the baseball season is. I mean, look, Braves fans can tell you that might be the better example. We have Wiley Ballard joining us at the bottom of the hour tonight. He is he's done extensive work for Bally Sports, working for the Braves and also the Braves radio network, and he's right there in Atlanta covering the Braves. I mean, look at the Braves lineup, say, last night, and look at the Braves opening day lineup and all the projections that everybody would have had. They're never going to match up. And that's what's, I think, so often forgotten about baseball seasons. I was going to bring up my team, the Dodgers. I mean, did anybody who had on their bingo card that Shohei Ohtani would have to bat leadoff because Mookie Betts would be out with a broken hand? And your lineup would consist of Kevin Biggio, Chris Taylor, Enrique Hernandez, James Outman, Miguel Vargas, and Miguel Rojas. Who looked at the Dodgers and whatever it is now, $250 million payroll, and said, "Oh, yeah, I imagine Andy Pages is going to be your center fielder for the bulk of the season." It just – injuries pile up, guys get in slumps, and the baseball season is very, very, very long, and that's what the Yankees are going through. And then Braves fans, we don't have to tell you, because to have to go through this season without Spencer Strider and having to go through it without your MVP, Ronald Acuna Jr., it hurts about what could have been for this program, for this
especially
franchise.
Especially considering the Philadelphia Phillies are playing as well as they are and about to bury the Braves in the middle of July. I mean, 10 games back, roughly 9.5 back in the East, just not where you want to be if you're the Braves. And they're still, and the funny thing is, it's not as if Atlanta is playing really poorly, despite all of what you just laid out. The Braves are 10 games above 500. The problem is the Phillies are 19 games above 500. 29 games above 500, and just came off a sweep of the Dodgers, your boys. And, I don't know what that tells us because I think that's a potential NLCS preview. I don't know what that tells us in July, but the way the Phillies are playing right now, and when Wiley gets on with us after 6:30, I think he can give us a better inkling as to what he anticipates seeing. But that I think is a huge statement by the Phillies this early in the season to sweep the Dodgers, not only beat them, but sweep the Dodgers heading into the All-Star break.
Yeah, no one is playing like the Phillies right now. They are a buzzsaw. Also on tonight's show, we will have David Hood join us from TigerNet, and he was actually reporting live from the courtroom and then outside the courtroom as that aforementioned judgment was coming down. That Clemson has established a case for specific jurisdiction against the ACC in the state of South Carolina. And look, again, with all the legalese that is popping up on shows like ours and has popped up on ours the last 2 weeks, we'll try to just boil some things down for you on Sports Talk. The part that I find fascinating and more immediate, Chris, is, I guess, the acrimony that this is causing between Clemson and the ACC. To me, that part might be more immediately fascinating to our particular audience because, as I mentioned to our guest, Matt Baker, last night, who writes for the Tampa Bay Times, I said Clemson and the ACC, that's ham and eggs, man. That's they've been together since 1953, whereas Matt Baker told us at Florida State, he said if there is, I'll quote him, and you can go back and listen to that interview on our SoundCloud, and you can find that through our Twitter at SportsTalkSC, and it was terrific. He said, if there is any emotion between Florida State and the ACC, I haven't heard about it. So to me, that's interesting, Chris, that case is so much different. He said it's straight cash, homie. And, of course, that's what it comes down to with Clemson and the ACC. But to me, and I think you'll agree with this, growing up in this state, being the age that we are, it's still hard for me. I know I'm going to have to grapple with this reality, but isn't it hard to close your eyes and imagine a world where Clemson is not playing North Carolina and Wake Forest and NC State and Georgia Tech on a yearly basis in the same conference?
Just not to see the ACC patch on their jersey or on the floor at Little John Coliseum, it'd be weird. It absolutely will be weird. And I think as Matt pointed out, and correctly so, at Florida State, you take the ACC logo up off the field and put the Big 12 logo on down. I'm not sure Seminoles fans could care one iota either way. Just go tell me who we're playing. We get Oklahoma State now as opposed to Virginia Tech. All right, that's fine. It's a totally different landscape, and we have to adjust to it. I think our younger listeners certainly have. They didn't grow up with 8 teams in the ACC. They didn't grow up going to high school or junior high in North Carolina where the Friday of the ACC tournament classes stopped so you could watch the games. I mean, it's a totally different world. So, and Clemson, I think the little bit of the sort of sentimental touch that they have with the Atlantic Coast Conference, I think, will be soothed by the fact they feel like they get a better TV rights deal, make more money, which is obviously the goal of all of this. And the be-all, end-all goal of college athletics right now, get as much money. It's a gigantic cash grab and get as much as we possibly can. And so I think that will solve and sort of rub some salve on if there is a wound. I'm not sure Clemson fans, they may not be as sort of flippant about it as Florida State fans, but I'm not sure Clemson fans would be all that disappointed that they don't get to play NC State every year.
No, I agree with you, Chris. I really I agree with everything that particular sentiment. And I know we're kind of beating this, and we'll get back to it. I have a lot more to say on the topic, but for me, it saddens me a bit to know that I think this is what the future is. But the proverbial cat is already out of the bag, right? We can't put this toothpaste back in the tube. I looked at the Big 12, and it's already over. And I think you've been telling me this for some time, Chris, that, look, what are you holding on to? The Big 12 conference is a conference that features Arizona State and West Virginia. It's anarchy. It's madness. SMU is in the ACC. Stanford and Cal will be an ACC game. The madness is already here. So what am I holding on to? I'm holding on to some amalgamation in my mind, something that exists in the ACC that in the minds of most doesn't even exist anymore. I'm talking about a conference identity that in truth isn't even in reality. When Virginia Tech goes up to Syracuse and plays in a football game, that has nothing to do with my memories of watching Tim Duncan play in the ACC basketball tournament. So those two things.
It's a Big East game.
Yeah, it's a Big East game in my head. So those things, they don't fit anyway already, and that's what you've been telling me. You've been, Smitty, you got to wake up from this. That dream that you talk about where you're trying to hold on to any conference identity, it's already gone. Missouri is going to play Texas A&M. That's an SEC game. So whatever the identity once was of all of these conferences about the Big Ten being up there in the Midwest and the SEC playing a specific type of football and the ACC being so elite in basketball and thumbing their nose at some of the SEC schools because they have better academic institutions, all that stuff, it's kind of all been mixed up anyway, and it's probably all gone. There's just some old school guys like me that are hoping that somehow we can, get some of that toothpaste back in the tube. But truthfully, it's gone, and I've got to move on, and I've got to embrace my new ACC overlords that have told me that Stanford and Cal need to be in the Atlantic Coast Conference.
Well, what's more ridiculous?
Geography be damned. Geography be
yes.
damned.
What's more ridiculous, that scenario, or the fact that Colorado is back in the Big 12 after leaving the Big 12 to go to the Pac-12 because they needed more money, and then the Pac-12 fell apart on them, and they got out to go back to their old league. I mean, can Maryland come back to the ACC? Is that plausible? I don't think so.
No.
Colorado did. They went back home.
Because the Big 12 isn't even the Big 12 anymore, right? I mean, it's the Big 12 in name only, but Colorado is returning to a conference that isn't really there anymore because Texas and Oklahoma aren't there. So that was a large part of the identity of what the Big 12 that Colorado left. That everyone said, "Oh, you're going to leave Texas and Oklahoma and Texas A&M and that kind of thing." Oh yeah, well we have to. Yeah, well that conference isn't even there anymore. The Big 12 is in my mind it's Conference USA. And the Big 12 is its nom de plume, that it's just a pen name that they're using. It's really it's Conference USA masquerading as the Big 12.
I just think ACC kickoff is going to be fascinating in 2 weeks. Be really, really interested. And as Matt pointed out last night, Mike Norvell and Dabo Swinney, they won't be able to comment on this stuff, but they're going to be peppered by these questions. All right, when are you leaving? How's the lawsuit going? Where are you going? What are you going to do with your football program when you start playing in the Big 12? How about the Big 10? What about the SEC? I mean, it'll be dizzying for those coaches, the amount of questions they'll have to deal with that has nothing to do with their current setup and the team they're trying to field onto the playing surface this year.
I know that Dabo Swinney has made a few comments in the past, and as you rightly said, Chris, Dabo Swinney will not be able to directly comment on this. And look, even if he could, he wouldn't want to, right? Because he doesn't want to distract from what's going on. Dabo Swinney's focus is on Cade Klubnik and what Garrett Riley's going to do with the offense and how loaded the defense is at Clemson and looking ahead to game one. That's Dabo Swinney's focus, and it rightly should be. But all the things that Dabo Swinney has said over the years about, I don't want players to get paid, and then he doesn't like the transfer portal. He wants to do it kind of in the old-fashioned way, which is get players from high school, develop them, and have them move up, year by year and compete for the positions and have a veteran team on the field. All of that. To me, this conversation where we're talking about attorneys and Clemson is not happy that the Big Ten and the SEC have lapped them in media rights, payouts, and all of those things. To me, this is worse than any of it as far as what I would want to be a part of.
No doubt.
Not even knowing where you're going to be in 2 years, that is not why you would take the Clemson job. Talk about stability. When Dabo Swinney got the Clemson football job, it was he knew what he wanted to build, and part of what was going on is that he knew the world he was entering. To shake things up to the extent that we're talking about, where Clemson, there would be discussions about maybe joining the Big Ten, maybe joining the SEC, maybe doing something with the Big 12 if the media rights are correct, or maybe trying to siphon off the Tobacco Road teams and create some sort of nouveau ACC 2.0. That would drive me wild if I was Dabo Swinney. I mean, the transfer portal would drive me wild, but more so than NIL, not knowing what conference Clemson's going to be in 2 years and whether or not, and even having the conversation about trying, even where is the best fit for you moving forward. Dabo Swinney, I would guess, would say, why can't we just stay here? Isn't there anything we can do where we could just stay here, play games in Death Valley? Let's have NC State come in. Let's have North Carolina come in. Let's have Florida State come in. Let's play these games. Let's play South Carolina at the end of the year. Does this have to change too? With all the other things that are changing, does this have to change too? And maybe those that are watching the bottom line, the bean counters, would say, well, Coach Swinney, if you and Florida State want to keep pace with where you've been and you want to meet the expectations that you have, these media rights payouts won't do it. $44 million against $80 million, you can't keep up. Clemson football won't continue to be Clemson football in 5-7 years if you don't do something now. So their hand is.
I wonder
being
if they
forced.
believe that.
That's to me. That's a great question. Great.
I wonder if you got
question.
If you got Dabo Swinney in an honest moment, you got Mike Norvell in an honest moment and said, guys, which would you prefer? The current setup, stay in the ACC, let's drop the lawsuit and continue doing what we're doing, or let's sue and get out of the ACC and end up in the SEC, Big 10, or Big 12. Which would you prefer?
Yep.
I would be fascinated to hear from the guys who it's actually going directly to affect. Brad Brownell, you want to go play in the Big 10? You want to go play in the Big 12? The ACC is no piece of cake, but neither one of those leagues are either. Baseball-wise, all right, let's assume for a moment they end up in the SEC. Eric Backett, you want to go deal with SEC baseball? I mean, the ACC is really, really good, but we just found out in Omaha it's not as good as the SEC.
Chris, I'll say this, and then I know we've got to get to a break to get to all that we need to get to tonight. But I think what you just said is absolutely the crux of all of this. All right, Dennis Dodd tweeted yesterday, and you brought this to light, Chris, in our conversation with Matt Baker. You brought this up. ESPN and all the media rights holders do not want that to go public. They do not want the media rights, specifically line by line, that they have with the ACC and other conferences. They do not want it to go public. What if ESPN came in right now and got Clemson, Florida State, and the ACC at a table and said, listen, fine, we don't want this going public. Clemson, Florida State, we have you under contract. We don't want you going anywhere. One time only. Let's tear this up, renegotiate. We can't guarantee where it's going to go, but let's get it closer. That would save ESPN from having that go public, and it would save the ACC and Clemson and Florida State. It's the one chance you'd have to put the genie back in the bottle, which is just reverse this. And what it would happen is ESPN would have to come off the hip. But ESPN might decide, look, it's actually worth us. It's worth it to us to come up and pay another $15 million over the next 10 years per year. That could be worth it to prevent our media rights deal from going public and having Clemson and Florida State walk away from a deal that we already have signed and delivered.
You don't think if you told Coca-Cola 20 or 30 years ago that Pepsi's on the verge of getting your secret formula to the old-fashioned, not the new Coke that they came out with, it was a disaster, but the old-fashioned Coke, the original formula, hey, but Pepsi won't be able to get to it if you agree to give us, some conglomerate to block it and keep it in a bank. We'll take another $15 million and we'll keep it secret forever. You don't think Coke would have done that? Absolutely would have. And I think the ACC would do the same thing, but I think we're way past that point. This is a divorce that has gone, custody battle now, and it's gotten nasty and ugly quickly. And I mean, no better example of that, I don't think, than the recent news this past week when the ACC asked Clemson to move the South Carolina game to a Friday, and basically Clemson told them what they could do with that idea. And I agree with that. And I thought that was spot on by the Tigers. You don't want to move that game. But, if you had any concerns about the acrimony between those two, I think it laid it out that, this is not fixable. I don't think it's repairable.
You are probably right. That's Chris Bergen. I'm Matt Smith. Our phone number, 888-898-2525. We're going to hold our floating break until the next half hour. We have Wiley Ballard coming up in just a few minutes. We'll talk Braves and perhaps Georgia Tech's place in all of this, since Wiley is right there in Atlanta. We also have David Hood joining us in hour number 2. From TigerNet. Sometimes I forget to even add TigerNet. I think we all know David so well. David Hood from TigerNet.
He is TigerNet, isn't he?
He is TigerNet. That's right. Mr. TigerNet.
HoodNet. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, it's
just call it hood.net.
TigerNet.hood will join us at 7:05. We'll talk NASCAR with Jeff Owens. We've got a little golf, birdies and bogeys with George Bryan coming up as well. And we'll try to get to, as you mentioned, Chris, Dawn Staley's audio. Maybe you can tell us quickly just what struck you. Again, Dawn Staley received the award last night. There was actually a lot of Gamecock women receiving awards last night. But what struck you, Dawn Staley, receiving the Perseverance, the Jimmy V Perseverance Award at the ESPYs?
Well, if you listen to what she had to say in the little feature they played right beforehand, it lays out the reasonings behind her being selected, and it has to do with former assistant coach, her sister, and a young lady that she has met, all battling and, have dealt with cancer over the years, and the job and role that Dawn Staley has played in either helping or furthering the notion of bone marrow transplants and bone marrow donations. I didn't even realize Dawn was an advocate there, but her talk about trying to tell her team in particular, hey, don't let anything stand in your way. She's a trailblazer. There's no question. Like her or dislike her, you've got to respect her, because she's going to tell you exactly what she actually made the comment and joked about, I'm still trying to learn not to clap back, her words, clap back at trolls on the internet. She said, I'm getting better. Still doing it some, but when somebody challenges her, Dawn Staley is not going to back down. And I think that sort of gives you a little keen insight into how she's become probably the most successful women's basketball coach currently, with the exception of probably Gino Auriemma, but certainly the hottest women's basketball coach on the planet right now with what she has dealt with her team. And I think too, Smitty, the fact that not only did she win that award, but also that the Gamecocks were named the Team of the Year by ESPN last night shows a major shift in the way sports fans are viewing women's basketball, because they beat out the Las Vegas Aces, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Boston Celtics, Oklahoma softball, Michigan football, which did just what the Gamecocks did, won a national championship by going undefeated, Connecticut men's basketball, who had a phenomenal season again, going back-to-back, and the Florida Panthers, who won the Stanley Cup. I would venture a guess, had we held this same vote, same teams, same seasons, but 10 years ago, with the way people viewed sports versus the way we do them now, there's no chance on this earth that South Carolina women's basketball is the team of the year. It's either the Chiefs, the Celtics, or Michigan football. I mean, it's pretty simple. But I think, and I'm not naive enough to believe that it's totally not driven somewhat by narrative that ESPN is hoping to push women's basketball, because they certainly carry a lot of it, and they've got the WNBA and the whole 9 yards. But I think also it speaks to how much we as a sports society have changed the way we look at things, and that women's basketball is cool to watch women's basketball, and you shouldn't be embarrassed as a man if you actually watch the women's game and enjoy it, because in fairness, the players are much better at what they do. The storylines in women's basketball this past college season were a lot more interesting than on the men's side. I mean, what was the storyline on the men's side? Can Connecticut go back-to-back? That was it. On the women's side, you've got South Carolina trying to continue building a dynasty. You've got Caitlin Clark. Can she win a national championship before she graduates? Angel Reese trying to get her second straight at LSU. I mean, there were so many different things, and I think that's translated. And I think that's part of the reason that the Gamecocks were honored last night by ESPN with the Best Team Award at the ESPYs.
Your whole, again, wholly right there. It's not everybody's particular brand of vodka, but women's basketball is having a moment. Wiley Ballard joins us next.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here's your weekend of 74. Tomorrow we'll see more clouds than sunshine. The high is back up to 95, and we have a 30% chance of some scattered showers in the afternoon. Sunday definitely nicer. Mostly sunny all day long, up to 97, and by Monday we'll be again flirting with triple-digit temperatures. Have a great weekend. I'm Cal Moss with your on-point local weather.
Breathe fresh life into your home with Lake Murray Soft Wash. Our team specializes in power washing, soft washing, and restoration. From roof cleaning to wood and concrete wash downs, we've got you covered. For top-notch, affordable services that you can trust, 528-1996 or log on to LakeMurraySoftWash.com to make an appointment. We're not just professionals, we're your neighbors. Whether residential or commercial, Lake Murray Soft Wash sets the standard in cleaning. Embrace the sparkling difference today.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting. A New Mexico judge on Friday threw out the involuntary manslaughter case against Alec Baldwin in the middle of his trial and said it cannot be filed again. Judge Mary Marlowe's case with prejudice based on the misconduct of police and prosecutors over the withholding of evidence from the defense. Baldwin cried and hugged his attorneys after the judge gave a ruling. Republicans have nominated Donald Trump for the presidency twice before, but the third time will be different. The RNC that begins Monday in Milwaukee marks the first time Trump comes into a summer convention with the GOP in crisp lockstep behind him and a GOP platform that he personally approved. On Wall Street, the Dow up by 247, the NASDAQ rose 115. This is SRN News.
Summers are so special around the lake. The only thing that can make it more special is finally going ahead and getting your own new boat. There's never been a better time than now. Marine 360 has a great selection of 2024s, but they won't last forever. And here's why. Everything Brandon and Scott have in their inventory is available at or below invoice cost. And not because they're good guys, which they really are. I've known them a long time. And not because there's some gimmicky commercial like some guy hawking used cars. I don't do that. That's simply because the manufacturer and folks like Crest and Sea Hunt, well, they've never been better. So you win, but you need to get moving. As the season goes by, the selection will dwindle. So my suggestion, do your homework. Go online. Look at Marine360SC.com. Make an appointment. Go see Brandon and Scott at Marine 360 right on Johnson Marina Road. Look at their showroom. Get a demo on the lake itself. This is the best boating value in years. Marine360SC.com or call them 749-2360. That's 749-2360, Marine 360.
At Palmetto State Armory, we've dedicated ourselves to providing responsible citizens with the themselves and their loved ones. For over a decade, we've been manufacturing top-quality American-made components and assembling them in Columbia, South Carolina, so that you can purchase them directly from us, either in-store or online at PalmettoStateArmory.com. We're committed to offering you the best, most reliable equipment you can count on. We invite you to visit us today and see what makes us different. Palmetto State Armory, American-made for life.
Hey y'all, this is Ted from Flight Deck Restaurant. We'd like to invite you and your family to dine with us. We have a great menu that's sure to please your whole family. We have fresh cooked burgers, big juicy wings, and country cooking, oven-baked hoagies, fresh crisp salads, authentic Greek food like gyros, souvlaki, and baklava. We also carry 20 different premium cheesecakes and pies. Flight Deck Restaurant also has an arcade with 30 different games like Star Wars, Batman, Skee-Ball, Bass Wheel, Pac-Man, Galaga, and so much more. Flight Deck, your favorite family restaurant. Thanks y'all and God bless.
Excuse me, would you like some expert advice on how to reduce your energy usage and save money?
Absolutely.
Did you know that Dominion Energy offers its residential electric customers a free home energy checkup?
Really? What's included?
A customized energy report and free installation of products for eligible customers.
Does it take long?
An hour or two at most.
So, how do I sign up?
Go to DominionEnergySC.com and click Save Energy.
DominionEnergySC.com. Here I come. Thanks for the tip.
Certain restrictions apply.
As we celebrate 10 fantastic years at Sweet Comfort Services, we're cooling you off with unbeatable deals on all SEER 2 and high-efficiency AC equipment. Hey, Point family, mention this ad and get a thorough spring maintenance check from our expert non-commissioned techs for just $95 for your first system and a chill $45 each additional system. Look us up AC.com or call us at 331-8143. Celebrating a decade of keeping you cool and comfy. That's the Sweet Comfort promise.
to Sports Talk. Matt Smith and Chris Bergen are here with you. We will shift gears a little bit. We're joined now by Wiley Ballard, who does broadcasting work. You've heard him, seen him on television with the Atlanta Braves on Bally Sports South, Braves Radio Network. Also works ACC and SEC games. And we just wanted to take the opportunity to catch up with Wiley about the Atlanta Braves, maybe a little Georgia Tech and ACC football as well. Wiley, welcome to Sports Talk. So glad to have you with us.
Thrilled to be here, Smitty, Chris, guys. I know some are counting down the days to football season. We've got baseball in full swing. It's a fun time of year. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Absolutely. Now, Wiley, we talked in the last segment. Chris was giving our erstwhile host, who's missing tonight, Phil Kornblut. He's still in Margaritaville on vacation. He's a Yankees fan, and we were just talking about how long the season is. The Yankees all of a sudden look like they can't beat anybody after looking like world beaters. So from a Braves perspective, the year is long, right? And nobody thought they were going to have to do this without Ronald Acuna Jr. and Spencer Strider. So everybody's kind of had to catch their breath and readjust expectations for the Braves. How's that going? Now looking forward, spinning forward with this particular group of Braves, and what kind of grade would you give them on the first half, having to do it without their MVP?
Well, I think if you look at the win-loss record, I think you've got to give them, worst case, a B+ in my book. And I think if you factor in the Acuna and the Strider injuries, I think I'd give them an A, maybe an A-. Look, the offense hasn't been what they thought it was going to be, at least up until the last week or so. They were shut out last night, obviously, but prior to that, they had been putting up 5 to 6 runs regularly, averaging about 5.5 runs per game over the last week until last night. So they're starting to find their stride there. So again, I think they've been surprised they haven't been able to score, but on the flip side, they've been one of the best pitching staffs in all of baseball, and it's been without Spencer Strider. And you've got Charlie Morton, who has been reliable, and Max Fried, of course, you expect him to be the ace. But what they've gotten from Chris Sale and Ronaldo Lopez, to me, that's got to be the headline for this team as far as positives go. You got a guy in Ronaldo Lopez who hasn't really been a starter since 2019. That's, before COVID. And then secondly, you've got Chris Sale, hadn't been healthy since about that same time. So for those two guys to come in and not just make starts consistently and keep the Braves in games, but put forth all-star worthy first halves, that's been a huge story for the Braves. Look, the Phillies are playing incredible baseball. They just swept the Dodgers. They look like the best team in the league right now, so Atlanta is a good ways behind them when it comes to the divisional race. But look, they're still 10 games over 500, and having done that with an offense that was, comatose there for a couple of months, and losing Spencer Strider, Ronald Acuna Jr., look, I'm not sure expectations have changed. I think, with this group, it's won 6 straight division championships. They won a World Series title 3 years ago. I think they still expect to make a deep October run. But given some of the hurdles they faced, I'd be tempted to give them at least an A-.
Wiley, I think you're spot on at 51-41. Had you told anybody in the Braves organization before the season began, here's the injuries you're going to have to deal with to Acuna and also Spencer Strider, but you'd be 10 games over 500 approaching the All-Star break, I think everybody would have signed up for that. The unknown factor was how good the Phillies will be, but take the Phillies out of the mix for a moment, sitting at 9.5 in front of the Braves as we hit the All-Star break. Are the Mets a bigger concern? They're starting to play much, much better baseball, and are they a legitimate contender that may knock the Braves out of a wild card spot if nobody can catch the Phillies?
Well, I can tell you right now, the reaction from Braves fans would be a chuckle because for whatever reason, It feels like over this stretch they have just owned the Mets. Everyone points to the 2022 season where they were able to erase a 10-game deficit in June and come back and win the division with that emphatic sweep at Truist Park to wrap up the 2022 regular season. So I don't think Braves fans are too concerned. From an objective viewpoint, look, I think everyone's kind of impressed with the Mets and what they've been able to do. I think Francisco Lindor is a much better player than he gets credit for. And look, with where the National League wild card standings are at, I think you sit there and say, hey, the Mets are a legitimate threat to make the playoffs. Are they a threat to knock off the Braves? Again, I feel like almost everyone, both inside the Braves organization and around baseball, feels pretty confident that guys like Austin Riley, Matt Olson, Ozzie Albies, they have better second halves in store than what we saw, these last several months. And so in some ways, I kind of feel like the Braves, from an offensive standpoint, it's just hard for me to imagine them not picking it up considerably. And so even if the pitching does take a step back, I still feel confident this is a Braves team that's going to be right around 90 wins, which, look, it's not the 100 wins they've had the last couple of years. But to me, I have a tough time seeing the Mets getting to 90. But, hey, 84, 85 wins could get you into the playoffs in the National League.
Speaking of the National League, I saw today, and I think it's great for the game itself that Paul Skeens is going to start the All-Star game on Tuesday for the National League. And Wiley, he'll be the first rookie to start the National League All-Star game, the All-Star game for the National League since Hideo Nomo did it, way back in the mid-'90s. The times you've been able to watch him pitch, because we here in South Carolina, I'm sure you guys over in Georgia kept an eye on him when he was at LSU, but what has impressed you most about him? And do you think that was the right decision by the National League to select him to throw on Tuesday to start the game?
Well, I'll answer the second part of your question first. I really think it came down to, it was kind of the only decision left. I mean, look, you've got Tyler Glasnow's on the injured list. Chris Sale's going to be starting Sunday, so that takes him out of a possibility to start there on Tuesday. And then you've also got Zach Wheeler, who's missing his last start. He's got a little bit of a back issue. So I think it was an easier decision for Torey Lovello, the National League manager, just because of those factors. And if it comes down to him or Ranger Suarez, look, it's a television event. And I think you think about the moments in the All-Star game that we all remember. I mean, the one that comes to mind for me is, Pedro Martinez striking out 5 of the 6 batters he faced. I think it was 1999. I think of a guy like Shohei Ohtani starting and then leading off offensively 3 years ago, at the top of the lineup. So I think, the All-Star game for me it's more about moments. And I don't think we remember too many of the guys who started these games as far as the box score is concerned. So for me, I look at it as we have an opportunity for a moment with Paul Skeens on the mound. Again, just 11 starts, ERA below 2. Are you telling me that he's going to be facing Shohei Ohtani in the first inning? That's how we're going to start the All-Star game off. So I buy into it big time. As far as what I've seen him in person twice. I saw him in person when he was in Atlanta. Struggled with his command, really didn't look that sharp. And then all of a sudden you get to the 6th inning and he's gone 6 innings, allowed 1 run. And that 1 run was a leadoff homer from Kelnick. So, as good as the stuff is, guys, what I was most impressed with is how he's able to compete and really putting his team in a position to win despite not having his best stuff. And then you touched on it, South Carolina. I did the game between LSU and Auburn last year when he made the start in Auburn. And, guys, I mean, look, the fastball is electric. It's impressive. But, that night the secondaries were jumping out. Those are the pitches that were jumping out to me. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've seen the numbers put up. We all know, I mean, you can throw 100 in the big leagues. I mean, look, if that's your only pitch, guys can hit it. The question becomes, what are your secondary pitches like? And when you see a guy who's made not 1 but 2 starts this year of at least 6 innings with no hits and over 11 strikeouts, it's more than just a fastball. The only other guy to do that in a single season is Nolan Ryan, guys. I mean, that's the territory we're talking about.
Wiley Ballard is in a ballpark or on a field almost 365 days a year. Tonight's no different, so we've got to let him go. You can always catch up with Wiley on Twitter at WileyBallard_. And we certainly follow him, and we invite you to do so as well. Wiley, we'll catch back up with you next time. We got to get into Georgia Tech and this acrimony between all the teams in the ACC. But for now, we'll leave it with baseball and let you get to it.
Thanks, Wiley.
Hey, we got plenty of time for that, and you're right. There's a lot of acrimony, and I'm about as curious as you guys to see where it all lands over the next couple of years.
Thank you so much. There's Wiley Ballard, rising star in our business, and we're going to keep in touch with him throughout the season. Great stuff there on Paul Skeens, the All-Stars, and the Atlanta Braves first half. We're going to take a break. We've got recruiting ahead. We've got David Hood from TigerNet.com. We've got Dawn Staley at the ESPYs, and we've got you at 888-898-2525. This is Sports Talk.
Relax this summer with a promotional rate on select travel purchases with your Founders Federal Credit Union credit. It's 6.99% APR for 6 months on qualifying purchases, including airfare, hotels, restaurants, and cruise lines. Don't let interest rates slow you down this summer. Visit foundersfcu.com/travel to learn more. Not a Founders member yet? Founders has the financial tools you need and the personalized service you deserve. Stop by an office or visit foundersfcu.com to learn more about Founders and see if you qualify for membership. On March 1st, 2025, the promotional APR will revert to the effective APR as previously disclosed. Call 800-845-1644 for details and terms. Membership qualification required.
I'm attorney Jim Corbett. I'm not a case manager. I'm a lawyer for over 35 years. I don't charge 40% for your injury in your wreck case or any on-the-job injury. Call 803-765-2968 and ask for Jim Corbett or email me, jim@jimcorbettattorney.com, for the experience of a lawyer handling your injury case. Jim Corbett, 803-765-2968. Jim@jimcorbettattorney.com. Put 35 years of experience to work on your injury.
Stay tuned. More Sports Talk is coming up on the Sports Talk Media Network. There's a lot of things we take for granted in our lives. Your home's AC will run cool. Your drive-through coffee will be hot. And the car will start when it's time to take your kids to school. It's when things don't go as planned that you start thinking about who to call and where to turn. The good thing is, you can prepare for life's most difficult days by calling the Larry Lucas Agency today. Larry is a State Farm agent that has been taking care of people in North Carolina for more than 2 decades. You probably have insurance, but switching is easy, and bundling can save you hundreds or more. Most importantly, the Larry Lucas Agency can help you choose the protection you want at the price you want. All backed by South Carolina's #1 home and auto insurance company. Visit LarryLucasAgency.com today or give Larry a call at 803-799-1998. Like a good neighbor, Larry Lucas State Farm is there.
You've put in the work for your education. The extra early, extra late, extra work. That's because you understand education opens doors to better pay, better opportunities, and a better you. Being educated about playing the lottery is no different. It helps you be a better player, one who knows when to play and when to take a rain check. The lottery's a game, so let's keep it fun. Learn more at sceducationlottery.com/betteryou.
The Sports Talk Recruiting Report is sponsored by
Seawell's Catering, the perfect spots. Not to go tomorrow, though, in terms of the daily lunch and buffet, because it's just during the week. However, if you are looking forward to the upcoming tailgating season, then you need to get to Seawell's because they can handle all of your catering needs, whether it's a wedding reception, birthday party, of course, tailgating. And if you Gamecock fans are looking for parking spaces for football season and games at Williams-Brice Stadium, hey, why not check out Seawell's and give them a call at 803-771-7385 or give SeawellsCateringSC.com a try. And don't forget to drop by their daily lunch and buffet from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. with the best buffet menu on the planet. It was a roast beef Friday today, so hopefully you had a chance to get by. In recruiting, there are 3 more top targets for South Carolina Thursday. Announced final lists and commitment announcement dates. Offensive guard Jalen Gilchrist of Virginia Beach is down to the Gamecocks, Maryland, and also Georgia. He said August 3rd for his commitment announcement. He had Alabama, Virginia, Virginia Tech, and Penn State included on his previous short list. Gilchrist made official visits to all 3 finalists in June. USC got the first visit and Maryland the last. Gilchrist also visited the Gamecocks for 2 games last season and for a junior day in January. Defensive end Jared Smith of Alabaster, Alabama has a final list of USC, Florida State, Alabama, Southern Cal, Ole Miss, and, of course, Georgia. He'll also announce on August 3rd, South Carolina is being projected as the choice for Smith by several recruiting analysts. He visited for the spring game in April and made his official visit with the Gamecocks the first weekend of June. Offensive tackle Cortez Smith of Lilburn, Georgia, named the Final Four of USC, Georgia, Georgia Tech, and Miami. He'll announce on July the 20th. He made his official visit to USC the first weekend in June. He also visited the Gamecocks for a spring practice in April and for a game last season. 2027 athlete Jaden Gibson of Brunswick, Georgia, plans to visit USC on July the 26th. Smitty, 2027 class. That would be freshman, rising freshman in high school? Is that right?
That's right. Yes.
Rising junior?
No, wouldn't be a junior because the 25.
Rising sophomore.
Yes, see, yeah.
This class is 2025. This coming up class is
so it'd be rising sophomore.
Yeah.
Right?
Rising sophomore.
Yeah.
He'll be starting his sophomore season.
Right.
This August.
Good grief. You know what's scary? It won't be long before we start seeing 2030 class commitments and visits planned.
Chris, I do not appreciate you editorializing in the midst of the recruiting report. You're supposed to love it. You've got to embrace it, baby.
I've been trying. Am I not fooling you well enough with it? I'm really fired up about where these kids are going to school. All right, this will make you happy then. We'll wrap up recruiting, brought to you by Seawells, with a schedule of upcoming announcements. So get out your calendar, get out your pencil, pad, your laptop, whatever, if you need to do. USC target center Isaac Souls will announce on July the 18th, which is next week. On July the 20th, USC target Cortez Smith, the offensive tackle we told you about a little bit earlier. He's set to announce. Also on the 20th, Bryce Davis, a defensive end who's a Clemson and South Carolina target, scheduled to announce. Laganza Hayward, a safety who is a USC target, will make his commitment announcement on July the 27th. Meantime, July the 29th, Anquan Fagans, who is a safety prospect and a target for the Clemson Tigers. He'll make his announcement then. July the 31st, Nelson McGuire, offensive guard. He's a Clemson target. He'll make his commitment announcement that day. Then we get into August, where Juan Gaston, a USC target. As a matter of fact, the final three I have here, all USC targets. Juan Gaston will announce on August 2nd. August 3rd, Jared Smith, the defensive end, will make his pledge, as will Jalen Gilchrist, the offensive guard, USC target, on August 3rd as well. They'll make their commitment pledge on those days. And that is recruiting on this July the 12th, brought to you by good friends over at Seawells. Don't forget to get fired up and get ready for the daily luncheon buffet starting again next week on Tuesday. And Phil will not be able to enjoy it all next week because they do not have a Seawells in Dallas, Texas.
That's right. And he's going to be in Dallas for SEC Media Days. And as we brought up a few times, the first that Texas and Oklahoma will be a part of things. You don't think the location had anything to do with that, do you, Chris?
No.
SEC
no,
wouldn't do
not
that.
at all.
They wouldn't do that. So that's going to we will have some great audio, however. And look, SEC Media Days, we know about talking season. We've lived through so many of these, but honestly, SEC Media Days get pretty entertaining because of the personalities involved. And, we might find it interesting, too, to hear from Brent Venables for the first time inside the SEC, of course, former long-time Clemson defensive coordinator, and what's going to happen there. And Lane Kiffin always has something to say. He's always a sound bite, and we'll want to hear from Shane Beamer as well. And we'll get to do that bright and early Monday. So follow our website, SportsTalkSC.com, and you can follow on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. We'll have that audio and reaction to it up right away before we even go on the air Monday night.
Anybody say anything close to as stupid as Coach Gundy did this week, do you think?
That bar is so high. That bar is quite high.
I mean, you really have to go out of your mind to say anything worse than Mike Gundy did about a DUI charge. I mean, it'd be really, really difficult.
Right, and that's right, because the number one candidate would be Kirby Smart, but we know Kirby Smart's not going to say anything. I mean, Kirby Smart's going to speak for 20 minutes, but he won't say anything of substance for 20 minutes because he learned under Nick Saban. Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, Bill Belichick, cut from the same cloth. You can listen to them for 22 minutes and come away and look around and say, I didn't hear them say anything. They talked, but they didn't say anything.
That's how you don't stick your foot in your mouth.
Yeah,
you can open it.
It's an art. It's an art.
It is an art form, but you don't have to say anything of substance, and then no one can come back and say, my gracious, that was dumb, like we've done all week with Mike Gundy. Meantime, saying some inspirational things last night. I think this is a good change from stupidity coaches over to one that's got a plan and can get you motivated heading into the weekend, and that's South Carolina women's basketball coach Dawn Staley. last night. The Gamecocks were probably the big winners, if there is such a thing, at the SB Awards, as Dawn Staley was able to haul in the SB for the Jimmy V Award for Perseverance. And after, once she was named the winner, and after they played a little video tribute to what she has done to earn the award, here's a little bit of what Dawn Staley had to say on the stage last night at the ESPYs.
Honored and deeply moved to stand before you today, accepting this prestigious award. But I must confess, I feel a little undeserving of this recognition. Past recipients of the Jimmy V Perseverance Award have faced incredible challenges and proven themselves as true warriors. I have merely been a spectator to such immense courage and resilience. Last week marked the first anniversary of the passing of my good friend, assistant coach, and Olympic teammate, Nikki McCray-Penson, whose story you just heard here. You also heard the powerful stories of my sister, Tracy, and Blakely Thompson. That sweet little girl is fighting cancer with all of her might. I'm wearing the necklaces tonight. Watching these three beautiful souls in the fight for their lives caused me to look internally. Their strength in the throes of such dire circumstances make any issue I think I have a non-issue. If they can stand strong in the rings with unwavering bravery and go toe-to-toe with only faith as their armor, how can I not? It's the fight for me, the unwillingness to give up or to quit. I think that's why I stand here today. I'm not the one to back down, and I don't give up. And believe me, I'm not perfect. I still clap back at people who troll me on social media. I can't help myself, but I'm working on it. But every once in a while, I get perspective, and I remember why I fight so hard. I realize how Nikki, Tracy, and Blakely's fight inspires me, that I might be that source of inspiration for someone else. So I try my best to do things the right way, knowing some little girl is out there watching me. Maybe she's growing up in the projects of North Philly like I did, or maybe she's in a rural town somewhere, or maybe she's one of the 13 pair of eyes that every single little thing I do every day and make sure to comment on. That's my team. If they could stand up and just be recognized. How do I not fight injustice when I ask them to do the things the right way? How do I not fight for fairness when I ask them not to cheat themselves, not to cut corners? How do I not fight for equity when I tell them they can climb as high as they want? They can be all that they want. How do I not fight pay disparity when I do the same job and get paid less, but win more? They're watching me. I can't ask them to stand up for themselves if I'm sitting down, nor can I ask them to use their voice to affect change if I'm only willing to whisper. So when someone tells me to shut up and coach, I simply say, no. I have a job to do. I'm being watched. And yes, using my platform is an awesome responsibility, but it's a responsibility that was divinely bestowed on me, and I graciously accept it.
And that is Dawn Staley, who continues to be in the national spotlight, both for her achievements on and off the floor. And as Chris said, some inspiring words. And, you know, there's always the discussion about equal treatment for female athletes, male athletes, female coaches, and male coaches. And we know that Dawn Staley is well paid. One of the highest, not the highest, but one of the highest women's basketball coaches. And as you said, Chris, she certainly has achieved the most in the last 5 to 7 years now with 3 national championships. And a lot to unpack, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. But Dawn Staley continues to be in the national spotlight from right here out of Columbia, South Carolina. David Hood, TigerNet.com, joins us next.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
Grills, outdoor kitchens, fireplaces. Summer sizzle starts with Bart. This is 107 The Point.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting. An investigation reveals another massive breach of customer information at AT&T. Correspondent Jennifer King reports.
AT&T says a 2022 security breach compromised the data of nearly all their wireless network customers. Virtual operators that use their network and landlines that interacted with their network customers. Files including records of calls and texts between May 1st and October 31st of 2022 were downloaded to a third-party platform. The company said Friday it has launched an investigation into the criminal activity and engaged cybersecurity experts. AT&T has more than 100 million U.S. customers and 2.5 million business accounts. I'm Jennifer King.
Texas officials are seeking answers about the ongoing power outages in the wake of Hurricane Beryl.
CenterPoint Energy officials have been getting grilled in huge power outages and sweltering heat are making life simply miserable. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick.
Terrible situation for people who are in this heat. Stores around them aren't open. Where do you get food?
The lieutenant governor says it appears CenterPoint underestimated the power of Hurricane Beryl, which made landfall Monday. But he's also giving the company some leeway.
They brought in 12,000 people.
The state's utility regulators are investigating. CenterPoint estimates about 500,000 customers will still have no electricity by Monday. Jackie Quinn.
A New Mexico judge on Friday threw out the involuntary manslaughter charge against Alec Baldwin in the middle of his trial and said it cannot be filed again. Judge Mary Marlowe Summer dismissed the case with prejudice based on the misconduct of police and prosecutors over the withholding of evidence from the defense. On Wall Street, the Dow up by 247 points. The Nasdaq rose 115. More at townhall.com.
Hi, this is Rhett Rasmussen of BestHotGrill.com. You've heard about our grills at BestHotGrill.com, but did you know we also make the best gas logs for your fireplace? You've probably seen Rasmussen gas logs and fireballs on TV and in the movies. We've got sizes to fit all fireplaces, styles to fit every decor, and we even do custom designs for large and unusual fireplaces. Lighting these logs is as easy as pushing a button. Realistic Rasmussen gas logs look great even when the fire is off. For regions prone to power outages, gas logs are an excellent source of emergency heat with no electricity required. We've been since the 50s, so you can buy a Rasmussen gas log with confidence. So go to BestHotGrill.com to find the products you need to keep you warm inside and outside of your home while eating great grilled food. Learn more at BestHotGrill.com. That's BestHotGrill.com, BestHotGrill.com.
A space telescope has found a pair of galaxies.
The Webb Space Telescope has captured a pair of intertwined galaxies glowing in the infrared. NASA and the European Space Agency's observatory photographed the two 326 million light years away, surrounded by a blue haze of stars and gas. The pictures marks Webb's second anniversary of science operations. NASA says the neighboring galaxies, nicknamed Penguin and the Egg, have been tangled up for tens of millions of years. The same will happen to our own Milky Way and the Andromeda Galaxy in 4 billion years. I'm Haya Panjwani.
Wholesale prices in the United States rose by a larger than expected 2.6% last month from a year earlier. That's a sign that some inflation remain elevated. News and analysis at townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here's your weekend forecast. Cloudy tonight, the low temp of 74. Tomorrow we'll see more clouds than sunshine. The high is back up to 95, and we have a 30% chance of some scattered showers in the afternoon. Sunday definitely nicer. Mostly sunny all day long, up to 97, and by Monday we'll be again flirting with triple. Have a great weekend. I'm Cal Moss with your On Point local weather.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
Grills, outdoor kitchens, fireplaces. Summer sizzle starts with Bart. This is 107 The Point. Please press button now. I said to, genius.
Welcome back to Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network. You can reach the guys with the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number, 888-898-25. That's 888-898-2525. Now back to Phil and Chris with the second hour of Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network.
And a good first hour of Sports Talk tonight, including a conversation with Wiley Ballard, Braves announcer, about the Atlanta Braves first half and the All-Star game coming up. Paul Skeens gets the nod there to start for the National League, so he's probably going to be squaring off with some combination of Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, Gunnar Henderson, Jose Altuve, some of those stars, and we might get, as Wiley Ballard said, that big all-star moment coming up in just next week. But now we're going to shift our focus back to football. And to do that, we brought David Hood with us from TigerNet.com. Of course, David is our go-to guy when it comes to all things that are going on with Clemson Athletics. He covers everything. He's on top of the recruiting. He's on top of the baseball program, the basketball program, the football program, past, present, and future. And now, David, good. All that Latin you learned in college is going good use too, because you get to cover things from a courtroom, as Clemson and the ACC have multiple court battles going on. The latest news you shared with us today, and that is that Clemson's case against the ACC will, at least for the time being, continue in Pickens County. So, David, welcome. And how did you feel being in that courtroom?
Well, so first of all, when we walked in, they told us that the media who had actually filled out requests to attend, we got to sit in the jury box. So it was very much a front row seat. And I took the seat of the jury foreman. So I felt like I was the foreman for everything that was going on today. But, I got to use a little bit of a Latin. Jim Cooney, who's a lawyer for the ACC, he brought out the res judicata today, and I thought, you know what, I think I know what that means, but Google is your friend. I had to use Google more than once for some of the things that they were talking about. But what I thought would be a boring day in court actually turned out to be fascinating, at least to me, as Clemson, for now, earns a win in court.
Yeah, David, maybe you can simplify it for us just a little bit, because we've tried to follow it, especially, there was some news coming out of the Mecklenburg County Court, and then obviously what you're covering directly there in Pickens County. How well can you put it in layperson's terms, just how it's going, I guess? How's it going for Clemson? How quickly will this get resolved? And if you were a betting man, what is the resolution at the end of this particular rainbow?
Yeah, so what we had in Mecklenburg County, North Carolina last week. Remember, Clemson is the one that sued the ACC first, and they did it in Pickens County in South Carolina. Well, then the ACC sued Clemson for breach of contract, and they did that in Mecklenburg County, basically Charlotte, in North Carolina. So what you had last week was Clemson asking the North Carolina courts to stay, not necessarily dismiss, but stay any type of litigation up there until South Carolina was heard. The North Carolina judge said no, it's going to continue, in North Carolina. Clemson has appealed that, so now it goes to the appellate court in North Carolina. Today was almost the inverse of that because Clemson sued first. The ACC was asking the South Carolina court, the 13th Circuit Court, say that fast, to stay this, or as Jim Cooney, the ACC lawyer, put it, can we just park this lawsuit to the side for a little bit until things are adjudicated in North Carolina? But the judge said, no, it's going to continue in South Carolina. There were several arguments, back and forth between the lawyers and the judge, everybody trying to plead their case. But in the end, it's going to continue to be heard in South Carolina. Now we wait on a schedule to see when the actual case can go forward regarding the grant of rights.
David Hood, senior writer for TigerNet.com, our special guest here tonight on Sports Talk, trying to piecemeal our way through the legislation, or litigation rather, between Clemson and the Atlantic Coast Conference. And David, I don't know if you've had these type conversations, but I'd be fascinated if you could get Dabo Sweeney or Brad Brownell or Sean Poppy or any of the other coaches on staff in an honest moment. Do you think they're all excited about what's going on? I realize it's a money deal. Clearly, it's a money situation. But do you think those coaches, if you asked them and got an honest answer from them, they'd just be happy to stay where they are?
Yeah, probably there's a few that somebody of their old school happy to stay where they are.
Mm-hmm.
But as much as everybody says, hey, this is ruining college football or it's ruining college sports, all of a sudden you think about an expanded league where instead of playing, up at Syracuse, instead of playing Boston College, instead of playing Wake Forest, instead of playing Duke in football, now all of a sudden, you're replacing that with more high-profile programs, where this is all going to head at some point. I think the coaches will be excited about that. For me, man, I kind of cut my teeth in the ACC, and I hate to see all of this disappear. I do think it will. From a Clemson perspective, I think it will disappear. But it's also exciting to see where this is going and kind of see where it all ends up. And let's face it, no matter what happens now with Clemson, the Big Ten, the SEC, Big 12's not in play. Where we're all headed is to the Super Conference. That's where we're headed. And there's going to be a league of 42 or 64, whatever. That's where we're going to be in 15 years. That's where we're headed.
I agree with you, David. I think we've all seen this one coming for years, so I don't know if this is going to be a moot point in 5 or 6 years anyway. But since you mentioned conference expansion to the point we've gotten now, do you buy much of what you've seen coming out of the Big 12 that maybe that's the destination for Florida State and Clemson? That's some of the reporting that was coming out earlier this week from there.
No, I don't. As soon as some of that started to come out, I got a text message from somebody at Clemson, and it said, don't listen to that. It's just the Big 12 trying to stir the pot. And, that's something that you kind of have to listen to. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And so, this is what I have to tell everybody. People got excited this time last year about potential Board of Trustees meetings and leaving the conference. And everybody knows that August 15th date, right? So if you are going to compete in a different conference, if you're going to leave, you have to notify the ACC that you're leaving by the August the 15th of this year to compete in 2025, starting in fall of 2025. So everybody's trying to ramp this up and make it seem like, man, this has got to go fast unless Clemson wants to wait until 2026 or 2027. But when I walked into the courtroom today, one of the ACC representatives looked at me and said, despite everything that you're hearing, this is going to be a marathon, not a sprint. That is echoed from the Clemson side. Like, this is going to take a while. And for all of the talk of the Big 12 or what's going to happen with the Big 10, Clemson has to find a way out of the ACC first. And in talking to people today, I said, hey, is this kind of a first step in bringing the ACC to the negotiating table and maybe getting it done sooner? And I was told, no, this really needs to play out. This needs to be decided by a judge so that there's, no appeals, nothing like this is just will be done. And so when I think you look at it that way, you're going to go, man, this has got several more months left in it. To me, the big date is February the 1st of next year, because at that point, ESPN has what you would call a look-in to the contract for the ACC. And they have a choice. They can either lower the media rights fees, they can increase it, they can keep it the same. And so what happens then? Well, let's say that they lower the media rights fees. Well, then that would give Clemson and Florida State and North Carolina or whoever else a really good reason in court to jump out of the league. So to me, I kind of look at that February 1st date as maybe the next big important one.
David, that is something we have not been talking about. Now, one thing I mentioned, and again, we are certainly talking out of school because I think you just laid out all the reasons why this has to play out in a courtroom. And so all of us, we're just going to be bystanders for a while. But one thing I brought up is I did wonder if it wouldn't be in ESPN's best interest to prevent their media rights deals going public and having that exposed everywhere, that it might be in their best interest to try to keep Clemson and Florida State in the ACC, and as a last-ditch effort, going back to the table and reopening the negotiation with the ACC to redo the deal to get them closer to the payouts that the SEC and Big Ten receive. Do you think there's any chance, any Hail Mary chance of that happening, or is this just going to be a divorce that plays out in front of us over the next 3-5 years?
Well, I do think it's going to be a divorce that plays out, but yeah, that is a wild card, and we all know that behind the scenes, it's the networks that are pulling the strings. Whether it's Fox trying to get a Clemson or North Carolina or Virginia or Florida State to come up to the Big Ten, or whatever happens, with the Big 12 or ESPN, ABC with the SEC. Those are the guys that are kind of making the behind the scenes decisions. And it could be a point where ESPN goes to the ACC and goes, look, we don't want to air this dirty laundry. We don't want this to go any further. And somehow they facilitate a move for some of these schools. And that's the part that's interesting to me. I flew out when Clemson played in the Elite Eight with one of the movers and the shakers to Los Angeles, flew out on the same flight as them. And, they seemed to hint to me at that point that, as much as this was being decided in the courts, it was also being decided in the boardrooms at ESPN and Fox Sports.
Wow.
David Hood. I know. I love it. Hey, you said super conference, David. Why don't we just all call it what it is? You're going to have Conference ESPN, Conference Fox, and Conference CBS, and then they can play for a national championship.
That's probably the way it's going to be.
And David, do we want that? Do we want ESPN and Fox having that much power where they can manipulate and move chess pieces across the board and move schools from conference to conference?
I don't think you want it, but I think that's kind of where we're at, now that the Pandora's box, and I'm all for the players being paid, but now that box is open, and now, you've got recruits who've never set foot on campus demanding, $1 million or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
I heard, the other day that a quarterback's going on the market for $9 million in NIL. You're making more than, 75% of the quarterbacks in the NFL, right? Like that's incredible to me. But now that that's kind of been opened, the money's got to come from somewhere, and money talks right now.
There you go. David Hood joining us, TigerNet.com. Great stuff. David, will continue to follow your reporting both on Twitter and at TigerNet.com. And, of course, wherever Clemson football, whichever conference Clemson's playing in, you'll be there, and we'll see you there.
Thanks, David.
I'll see you guys. Bye-bye.
ESPN conference. Interesting. Fox conference. I had never considered that as a possibility, Smitty, but David's idea makes a lot of sense. Scary that those guys have that much power, but it makes sense.
We're with Major Billy Downer of the Department of Natural Resources. Major Downer, it's hunting season in South Carolina this fall, and folks need to be prepared from a legal standpoint.
That's right, Phil. Everyone always needs to buy their hunting license or fishing license. Well, now that's not a problem anymore because you can keep your license on your phone. That's right. Go Outdoors SC. It's an app. Look for it on your Apple or Android devices. You can buy your license. You can renew your boat registration, and it's all right there on your phone. Remember, Go Outdoors SC in your app store.
Call Lawyer Lisa. Experience the difference with Lawyer Lisa.
Hi, I'm Lisa Hosteller Brown. Did you know it's possible to avoid probate court after you die, regardless of what you own? Why put your loved ones through a long public process when there are better options for your family? Visit lawyerlisa.com to see how we can help.
Call Lawyer Lisa. Experience the difference with Lawyer Lisa.
7511 St. Andrews Road, Irmo, South Carolina.
If you're looking to stay hydrated this summer, turn toward a southern favorite, sweet South Carolina watermelons. One slice is equivalent to a glass of water and is just as effective as sports drinks for hydration. If you don't believe us, you can ask the Palmetto State's top football teams. The SC Watermelon Association will be serving after summer practice to keep our teams fueled and hydrated. Visit scwatermelon.org for all the details and look for ripe South Carolina watermelons in your hometown.
The South Carolina Education Lottery has introduced a new rolling jackpot, and it's big.
How big? Bigger than a striped bass? Reel 'em in.
Way bigger.
Bigger than this world-class golf course? Or
bigger than that.
Even bigger than the Gaffney Peach?
Let's just say with this new rolling jackpot, Palmetto Cash 5 is officially too big to ignore. Palmetto Cash 5 draws nightly, so play today and check if your numbers are winners or at seeducationlottery.com.
overall odds are 1 in 10. Top prize odds are 1 in 850,668.
George Bryan for Tsunami Bar Sports, our inventor, David Abernathy, has always said Tsunami Bar technology allows us to take the training to the grass. Now I know through my sport of golf that natural agility can be converted to athletic ability. And why is this, Tsunami Robbie?
Transferring the training to the grass. This may be the most undervalued characteristic of the Tsunami flexible bar technology. The Tsunami bar action loads and unloads at the concentric and eccentric transition, what we call reversal forces. And the Tsunami bar is the only bar and training device that I know of that can train these reversal forces adequately at speed.
Hey, this is Phil Kornblut. The Tsunami Bar is a terrific training device, whether you're working on your fitness or your golf game. It's convenient, it's easy to use, and you won't feel beat up afterwards. Be sure to click on the digital ad on SportsTalkSC.com and get 5% off any order using promo code BBB5. Don't wait, order today.
Love it when it's fun, love it when it's fast, love it when the leaders talk, the pack is moving past. Love it when they're making lots and lots of noise. Can't wait to hear these doubles say. Boogity, boogity, boogity. Let's go racing, boys. Let's go racing, boys. Love it when they're drafting, love it when they slide.
Time to go racing in the fast lane with Jeff Owens, who joins us every Friday night right here on Sports Talk as they go to Pocono here this weekend. Jeff, good evening. How you doing on this Friday?
Hey, guys. How are you?
We're doing well. Corn's out on vacation, so we're trying to piece it together with duct tape and baling wire, but we've made it to almost the end of the week.
Well, at least you're not singing, so that's good.
Is that an indictment on all of our singing or just Phil's?
No, just Phil. Just Phil.
Totally understand. So how was your, gosh, I hadn't had a chance to talk to you since before last week. So how was your 4th of July weekend?
Not bad. Had a good weekend and watched the race from Chicago, which, again, boy, they just can't buy a break there with the rain and all that. They had a pretty good weekend, with the festival and everything. And then, of course, rain marred the race on Sunday and turned it into a really wild situation there. But, yeah, other than that, pretty good weekend. We saw a decent race and ready to move on.
Do you like the setup in Chicago? It's so different than the other road course racing because this is truly a street course through a downtown metropolis like Chicago. Do you like that setup there? And do you think it's viable? Because I did see some of the disappointing side of this. They had some concerts beforehand and no one attended the concerts, but it looked like the race itself was fairly well attended.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I don't know if it's going to work long term there. I mean, they've had weather problems each of the last 2 years, and the problem they got there is that you got a pretty tight window to get that race in, and
Right.
we saw that happen this time. They had to put a curfew in place. 8:00 was the shutdown. And they had to use the clock, and we didn't race to the end of the race. We raced we raced the clock. They had to put a timer up and all that. And that's because it takes so long to build the course, and then you have to take it down on Sunday night so people can get to work Monday morning. So, anytime there's weather that's going to happen. You can't come back and run that race on Monday. So that makes it a very risky proposition. So I like the racing. I like the venue. I think it's really cool, but I just don't know how feasible it's going to be going forward. So we'll just have to see. If they did not do well in the concerts and the other part of the festival, I'd say that's probably not good. I think they'll take the street race ideas maybe somewhere else, but maybe Chicago's not the place to do it.
Is Saturday not an option for them to try and run that race just from the standpoint it's Chicago and they can't close the city streets on a Saturday?
Yeah, I don't think you can. Maybe they can run it on a Saturday. I mean, they've got the streets and the course. They run the Xfinity race on Saturday, so they're already there. The problem is, you can't light it. You can't light a road course or a street course that big, so you're limited as to how long you can run. So I don't know. They may have to take some look at some options like that. Maybe you run a Saturday doubleheader and then Sunday is there as a rain day if you need it. So they may have to do some things like that. But it'll be interesting to see. I mean, they really, really wanted to do this. I think it's a good idea. I think the racing has been pretty good. The Chicago venue just comes with a lot of challenges. They run street races for F1 in Miami and some other places. So, maybe they look at taking it somewhere like that.
Jeff, I'd just like to point out the Georgia football roster can organize a drag race and get it up, running, and done in 45 minutes. So maybe they should hire them.
Yeah, they've got a lot of experience at that. Probably more so than NASCAR does have putting on street races. So
that's that's 100%. Somebody clip that audio. Jeff Owens joining us here in the Fast Lane, talking a little NASCAR. Jeff, I asked Josh Harris this, Darlington Raceway president, and as I asked him, I realized this is going to be a tough question for him to be honest about, but you can be honest about this. You've had the dirt track race in Bristol. They have the throwback weekend, which is a huge success, and I'm a firm believer in it. Never touch that. Always keep that going. All-Star race, now the street race in Chicago. More and more of these event-style races in NASCAR, so it's something to kind of promote during the week. Where do you think we are with that? Or is it enough? Is it too many, one too many, or do they actually need to add more because most of them have been successful?
Yeah, I don't think all of them have been successful. Certainly the dirt race at Bristol was not a success. North Wilkesboro, I think the jury's still kind of out on it. I think everybody loves the idea of going there, back to that historic track, but they haven't really been able to put the package together yet to produce a really good race. I think they'll keep working on that. And I think the same thing with the street race. I think they'll keep doing this. I think we're going to see some more street races. I think we're going to continue to see I don't know about the deal they start the season with in the LA Coliseum. That's one that they claim has gone well. I don't like it. I don't think it's gone well at all. I don't like that idea. Putting a race like that inside of a Coliseum, that's inside of a football Coliseum, I think that's one that's just not going to work. So I would love to see them move away from that. But I do think they're going to continue to try to go to different places and put some, unique situations into it. I think the street race thing will catch on and we'll go somewhere else. I think they'll keep working on Wilkesboro, and maybe we see, who knows, maybe we see some other new tracks come onto the schedule.
Jeff, about 90 seconds. I wanted to ask sort of a two-parter. First off, the news coming out that Bubba Wallace was fined, but did not lose any points after his contact with Alex Bowman. Were you surprised that NASCAR was a little harsher with him? And also, were you surprised, I haven't seen it if it occurred, that Chase Elliott was not penalized for nearly the same thing after the race was over?
Yeah. I didn't really get the chance to see what happened with Chase. I think those two guys were just aggravated and banged into each other. Bubba went after Bowman and intentionally slammed him in the door. And I think, they've set a precedent that they're not going to tolerate that. I think what saved Bubba in points is that after the race, Alex Bowman came out and basically said that was 100% my fault. I wrecked him. I made him mad, and he actually requested NASCAR not fine him and not suspend him. He took total responsibility for it. I think that sort of helped Bubba a little bit, but he got off easy, not losing points for sure.
Yeah, because that could have been detrimental for his chance to get into the playoffs. Jeff, always good stuff, my friend. We appreciate the time tonight. Enjoy the race weekend at Pocono, and we'll catch up with you next week.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you, sir. There's Jeff Owen inside the Fast Lane. Always fun to catch up with Jeff. Hey, snazzy new picture on our stream as well of Jeff Owens. I like the teal shirt that Josh found of him. I've got a picture that I use that must be 20 years older. Love Jeff.
Everyone go to our YouTube please. The stream is really growing and getting a lot better. Not just because Phil Kornblut's face hasn't been on it this week, but Josh Cohen, our producer, he's not just our on-air producer, he's our streaming producer and director as well. He's doing a tremendous job. The visuals are getting better.
Thank you.
By the way, 22 Georgia football players have been charged with driving-related offenses since January 15th, 2023. That's where that joke came from.
Nothing to see here, though.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Cloudy tonight, the low temp of 74. Tomorrow we'll see more clouds than sunshine. The high is back up to 95, and we have a 30% chance of some scattered showers in the afternoon. Sunday definitely nicer, mostly sunny all day long, up to 97, and by Monday we'll be again flirting with triple-digit temperatures. Have a great weekend. I'm Cal Moss with your On Point local weather.
Dave Ramsey here. Do you want your money to work for you rather than you working for your money? Go see my friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. They're not a mega bank and have been serving the Midlands since 1996, offering good old-fashioned customer service and free services. They'll look out for your financial well-being. With 14 locations, check them out today at palmettocitizens.org. Federally insured by the NCUA.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting wildfires fueled by strong winds and an extended heat wave have led to the first death in California of the 2024 fire season. Mendocino County officials say they found human remains of a woman that had burned in a fire that started Monday. The coroner's office is working to identify the body. President Biden says his pledged delegates could vote their conscience, and party rules confirm that. But historical precedent and the delegate selection process makes it likely that the vast majority will stick with him anyway. At least 3,896 delegates are pledged to Biden, but that pledge isn't an ironclad agreement. DNC rules encourage but don't specifically require delegates to vote for the candidate they're pledged to support. Wall Street, the Dow by 247 points. This is SRN News.
I sure like to brag about good local businesses. Franklin Plumbing and Drain Cleaning is a great local biz. Josh and his team stress customer service as their top priority. Franklin Plumbing and Drain Cleaning came out to my house. I had a toilet that wasn't working right, a garbage disposal that died. They came out right on time, told me everything they were going to do, and explained the price of each repair before even bringing in the tools. I knew exactly what I was getting and exactly what it would cost. Their prices are fair, their team is courteous and professional, plus they did a great job fixing in my home. I am very careful about making any recommendations, and I'm thrilled and confident to suggest you call Franklin Plumbing and Drain Cleaning for any plumbing needs. If it's a repair or to replace something, if it's that tankless water heater that you've always wanted to give you that endless hot water and save you some money. They unclog drain and sewer lines and so much more. Online, you'll find them at franklinplumbing.sc.com or just give Josh and those great folks a phone call, 799-2222. That's 799-2222. And tell them you heard about them from here at The Point.
This is Fran Halloran, the Money Coach. As we build on 10 incredible years of community local radio, we built an environment where our listeners are our family. Are you a small business with big dreams? Join the tremendous stable of advertising partners at The Point. Connect with Kevin Cohen and brainstorm a tailored strategy to escalate your business growth using the powerful platform of The Point. Call Kev directly at 563-8558. Teaming with The Point, you can make the next year your best year.
Add some sizzle to your backyard with a new grill, smoker, or outdoor kitchen from Bart Fireside. Bart of gas, charcoal, and pellet grills to choose from. Get advice on how to master your next backyard bash. They'll help you plan that new outdoor kitchen to help you entertain year-round. Make memories outside this summer. It all starts with a savory cinch from our Bart Fireside grill. Online, bartfireside.com, or visit the showroom at 1131 Broad River Road.
Some people would tell you the world's on fire right now. Well, this isn't a political message. It's a message in support of Ken and his team at Broker Solar in downtown Columbia. I love what they're doing. This is meant to remind you about something. You can't It's not like swapping cell phone companies every time they ask for another rate increase. You know what, though? You can take control of your power bill. You can either pay the man or be the man. You can own your own energy. You need to reach out to Broker Solar. In famously hot Columbia, when it's 100 degrees in the shade, you won't lose power when the grid can't handle the heat. You'll have stored energy and a solar-powered battery. During peak hours, when the power company's cleaning up, you'll run off your solar panels and you'll get the last laugh. Hey, solar's not for everyone. It's a serious financial commitment with serious financial benefits. My suggestion is you reach out to Broker Solar and the guys and let them answer online. It's brokersolar.com, or give Ken a call at 807-7417. That's 807-7417 for Broker Solar.
Straight down the middle, it went straight down the middle. Then it started to hook just a wee bit. And that's when my caddy lost sight of it. That little white pellet has never been found to this day. But it went straight down the middle, like they say. Whack down the fairway.
And welcome back to Sports Talk. Time now for Birdies and Bogeys, presented by Tsunami Bar Sports. And that sound, right down the middle, means that George Bryan joining us now for Birdies and Bogeys. George, welcome back.
Oh, what a privilege it is. And sure going to miss Phil, but I like to mix it up with, I guess this is Smitty, and I hear Chris is on with you too.
I'm here. Yes, sir. I'm here too.
Yeah, you got to have different playing partners, right? You can't just do the dogfight every week with the same guys.
You know, that's what's so beautiful about golf and the public golf. So there's where my roots are. And from public to private, I typically would have to sneak on all courses. I did not have the money to pay. And the way I look at it, well, I'm driving through a neighborhood and down the road, and I see something that looks kind of fun to smack a ball around on, and whether it be a pasture, I've gotten kicked out of pastures, golf courses, private and public. But yeah, I love playing with new people, meeting new people, and hey, and there's something else. I've talked to a number of tour players, the ones that reach the highest level, and when I ask them, hey, how did you stay through all the thick and the thin? Most have to go through quite a bit before they reach that highest level, and I'd say a strong percentage, and I don't know what exact number that is, but they stay with the game because of the relationships they develop with people, different people. And still to this day, there are a number of folks that just go to the golf course by themselves, expect to get paired up, and they'll meet somebody different to play golf with. And then, you know, there are plenty that just stay with the groups that they start with very early age and been playing for decades. Same group, which is, as long as you got a stick and a ball in you got a stick in your hand called a golf club chasing a golf ball on a golf course. I mean, it's no better game. It's the greatest game of all. Now it's an Olympic sport, and this is an Olympic year. Isn't that cool?
That is cool. You are right. You are, George. Do you know any Olympians?
Well, golf. And used to know a few back in the day, but know a few of the golfer Olympians, just vaguely, not great. Xander Schauffele is a young fella. He's a fine young fella, represented pretty good at the last Olympics. And I think he's one of those that are very close to being a shoe-in for this one too. And otherwise, I'll have to say no close relationships with any gold medalist, silver medalist, or bronze, but several who have participated in the Olympics and other sports. So how about you all?
Well, no, that's what we were going to, and we were actually going to ask you, George, you just hit on something. You mentioned the Olympics, and of course, in a way, the Ryder Cup in your world is every bit as big and every bit as important. And there was some real news this week when Keegan Bradley was announced as the captain. And maybe it was news because there had been so many hints and rumors surrounding Tiger Woods perhaps getting that role. And Keegan Bradley, a great great player with a great resume, but not to the level of we're used to seeing. So what did you think as kind of a golf insider when you saw that Keegan Bradley was named to captain the U.S. Ryder team?
Intrigued. I don't know much about him. I listened to him and Wesley mix it up a little bit. They've gotten several pairings and quite intrigued. He'll be one that will be a lot of fun for me to follow closely. His passion is, it is deep. He's hot for the game, loves it. So a lot of folks don't realize his aunt is Pat Bradley. So, I'm really good with him being the captain of that team. And so one of the things that has happened in recent years is, in my opinion, the Americans have begun to study a little bit about how the Europeans became so dominant. And I can tell you, in 1997, Fred Johnston took me and a number of folks on a trip to Europe. We were in Europe when the Ryder Cup took place, playing golf, listening to the European perspective from Europe is right there. There was the clear message on why they became so dominant in the early 80s. It's all about team to them. So golf's an individual sport, and the Europeans figured out a way to make team the thing. And that's, quite the opposite in this country. This country, it's individual sports. I've listened to great college coaches say, hey, the way we become great is we still turn the individual sport into we still turn the team sport into an individual game in the players' minds. However, when I speak to the Europeans, and I have had the privilege of playing with a number of Ryder Cuppers, it is always we, it's not me. And that's the big difference. And I think Keegan Bradley will carry that into his leadership. That's what I think. So I'm telling you, it's going to be a good one too. Hey, if the golf's not, I can tell you the exchanges and what we read about and even hear the players and how they act and react, that ought to be fairly entertaining this year.
No doubt at Bethpage for sure. George Bryan III with us here tonight for Birdies, Bogeys, and Biceps, presented by the Tsunami Bar all across the state of South Carolina. George, that's one thing I've gleaned over the years watching the Ryder Cup is the ability to adapt into a team. And it almost always seems like the Americans are down 3 or 4 points going into singles, and that's when they make their comeback because we're much better as singles players than we're as team. Does it even go back to where the colleges need to, and I think we've talked about this before when we've had some of our college coaches on with you about, do we need to have more team-oriented events? The 4-ball, the foursomes, those type things in tournaments to get our players accustomed to being able to play as a team, maybe more so than just the individuals that have to find a way to come together as a 12-man team at the Ryder Cup.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely no question. The PGA of America has the PGA Junior League, and there's an expression just to what you had to mention. I think the colleges, considering this is a little bit, I'm always one that exaggerates towards the extreme, and I think the colleges, considering the NCAA championship is match play, right. What in the world are they doing playing so many stroke play events when the major tournament is match play? Who cares about stroke play if the big trophy comes from match play? I don't get why they're not playing, going back to old school, back when the colleges would play each other in matches, not 12, 20 teams collecting together and throw 54 holes out in stroke play. They try to see how many holes they can play. Hey, I'd rather see 20 teams get together and play match play. Shorten the daggum. 18 holes. Doesn't have to be 18 holes. Make it 6-hole matches and get them all to compete against each other. There's nothing. That's not complicated. And why not year round just play match play? And I know the coach. There's the college coach out there even got their ears on this time on a Friday night. But it makes no sense to me to see all the stroke play events when the big dance is match play.
I agree
There
with
you
you.
have
It's like a football team playing, 4 quarters throughout the regular season, and then the playoffs are 5 quarters long. You need to match what you're going to do in the postseason. I think it makes perfect sense to me as well.
It's almost more ridiculous than that. They're not even playing. They're two completely different mentalities of golf, and it's one of those things that it boils down to who's in control, NCAA and the USGA, and then the college. The college coaches carry a little bit of weight. They have a vote, but I'm sure I'm not the first one to come up with that idea. Hey, in fact, up until the 70s, it was match play anyway. Everything was match play. University of South Carolina won the ACC championship in that era, by the way.
The match play, interesting. I'm fascinated though with the Ryder Cup, George. Go ahead.
I'm not sure the ACC championship was actually. I don't have a record of that, but that was an era where one school would compete against the other in match play. That's how they went throughout the tournament season. So, and the PGA Championship itself used to be a match play event. So that's right. You go back into the 20s, 30s, 40s. The PGA Championship was a match play event, and Ben Hogan didn't play in it. One of his, 52, 53, because he could not walk 36 holes in a day. It was after his car accident. So, hey, I'm a fan of match play. I really am. And
I can tell.
Yeah, it's played at club golf, and at the club level, I think it should be an integral part of club play, even going back to, in England, Scotland, Ireland, club matches are huge. That's how the community gets involved with golf. A little bit like soccer, the communities get behind soccer, football, baseball, basketball, but part of the reason the communities don't get behind the local clubs is what we've been talking about. It's individual over here. The emphasis on individual versus team, and we're in this country. Hey, we got the greatest players in the world. However, the way we will stay on top in every format, in my opinion, is through what we're talking about. Let's make a little noise about team.
One final thought on the Ryder Cup, and then we'll talk more about individuals. The Scottish Open going on this weekend in prep for the British Open. But I'm fascinated by the idea of captaincy in the Ryder Cup, whether it be Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, whomever was up for consideration, and now obviously it's Keegan Bradley. George, in your experience, how much does a Ryder Cup coach have an impact in terms of once he's made his coach's picks to fill out the team? I mean, how much more can he help? Can Keegan Bradley sort of motivate the guys and group them together? How much does he actually do to be a successful coach?
I've never been in the locker rooms and at dinner at Ryder Cup. I've only spoken and played with individuals who have been Ryder Cup players. So as I answer this question, I'll say it goes back to this. The players, all the players, they have so much respect for team. There are, if you look at the European history, the coaches follow some real basics. Who gets along together, who the pairings are, and the players are constantly, even you can go listen to some of the interviews, and some of the Americans would think that the Europeans would put a Ryder Cup victory in front of an individual major. They think that when they make those comments that they're exaggerating, but they're not. So it goes back to just decades of a mentality on the coach, and the coaches, they have so much respect from the players, and the players respect the coaches. So it's everything in Europe. The players have the utmost respect for the coaches. And it's one of those things that, it kind of goes back to this country. If we don't like our leader, well, we're just going to keep on doing what we do, and we create these little pockets, and then you have some rifts. Well, you don't ever see that on the European side, hardly at all. And if it does happen, the press here doesn't get about it. They don't get into it. So I think there's just overall more camaraderie. The players don't think in terms, and the other thing, they still do things in Europe a lot of the old way. They travel a lot together, and there's an advantage there. They're not playing in front of near as much commotion as what we are. I mean, even at the small PGA Tour events, the smaller, like the event in Kentucky, I had to look up who was the sponsor. It used to be Barbasol, and it's some initials. It's a pipe company a bit associated with golf, and I'm sorry I don't have that in front of me right now. But even at those smaller events, there's major press constantly around these players. Well, the Europeans aren't playing under all that scrutiny and all the comments and the pressure from the press. Their camaraderie is with each other. So I think there's a lot more support player for player. And when it comes to Ryder Cup, the Germans will support, the Swedes, and the Spaniards support the French. And I mean, it's kind of odd, but they're traveling together, and there are a lot of close relationships because they're in such quarters in travel too. So
that is very interesting. George Bryan joining us tonight. This is Birdies and Bogeys presented by Tsunami Bar Sports. George, I've got one more question, because you were talking. I love, by the way, that the PGA used to be match play. I would love to see that return, because that would set it apart from the other majors. But anyway, just putting that aside for a second, the other thing about the Ryder Cup is you talk about the ultimate team event, foursomes as they call it, which is alternate shot, which means you've got to set your buddy up where he wants to be set up with a club he can hit from a position he can hit. To me, that sounds like the ultimate team event.
Yeah, and I think we have one in Louisiana that is a team format like that. That is so much fun too, because you find out who your buddies are and how much you love each other. I have my cousin Charlie Bryan. I put him in some terrible places back when I was first learning golf. I used to get invited to the Chanticleer Cup, and that's where I actually got a chance to play with Jay Haas. And what a gentleman he is, and he's a Ryder Cupper. So I would actually speak a little bit with him back in the day about the experience. Not much. Mostly like, hey, Jay, I'm nervous. Where you, yada, yada. And he's flush. His heart's golden. He would share. But that is really and truly the most colorful golf format that we have. That's going to bring out all emotions, and it brings out all strengths and weaknesses. And that chemical variable, that recipe really does matter. And see, the Europeans, I'm talking long ago, they'd be playing, even when I was playing professional golf back in the 80s and 90s, quite a bit, you'd see Europeans. Well, how about this? In Ireland, or in Scotland rather, in Scotland, before noon, you were not able to play an individual ball. You had to play in a foursome. They regulated that at the private clubs that I visited. You were not allowed to play individual golf. You had to go out in four ball at the clubs, at least that I invited. And once I went, whoa, what's the rule here? You can't before noon. What? And they go, yeah, you must play a four ball today. So at Portmarnock, let me just tell you, Portmarnock, you play a four ball if you're going to play on Saturday or Sunday before noon. And the captain of the club assures you that you cannot. That's the format of the day. And they point you to the tees and say, those are the tees of the day. Like it, or move aside, somebody else will be in your spot. So
that is the stories from the road with George Bryan here on Birdies and Bogeys. George, let me quickly give some scores and notables from local notables, and I'm going to ask Chris to do the same, and then you get to chime in, because you're going to know some of these names certainly. In the Kentucky Open this week, and then we'll get to Chris in the Scottish Open. In the Kentucky Open, the leader is Pierceson Coody at 16 under after 2 rounds. Matt Naismith is still in the tournament at 10 under par. Jonathan Bird and William McGirt, and also Bill Haas, all came in at 9 under par after 2 rounds. Kevin Kisner just made the cut at 8 under. Wesley Bryan, Carson Young, and Tommy Gainey missed the cut, but Wesley's is truly a heartbreak. 7 under, and I think the cut was 8 under. We'll get George's reaction to that in just a second to miss just by just a stroke. Chris, what have you got with the Scottish Open?
Oh, let's see here. The leader right now after 2 rounds is Ludvig Åberg. The Swede is playing extremely well, has been throughout this season, -12. He's got a 1-shot lead over Antoine Rosner, and then Matteo Manastero, who is -10, along with Sanjay M, who is also -10. Some names you might remember. And, of course, the Scottish Open is the preview and prelude to next week's British Open. Sahith Theegala is at -9. Colin Morikawa from the United States also -9, as is Rory McIlroy, who's sitting at -9. Adam Scott in there at -8. So he's 4 shots back as they get ready for round number 3 tomorrow, moving day. Lucas Glover was in the field, but he missed the cut, which fell at -3.
Yeah, and we're getting ready for the biggest event next week in the world, and it is just simply called the Open Championship. And I tell you what, that is one that fun to watch. Got to get up early. Just a little reminder: we'll preset everybody's schedule. You can get up 5:30, 4, 5, or 6 o'clock, and they'll be well into the round because I think they'll be at least 5 hours in front. And Troon is the host club, and I failed to ask. I don't have this information. I don't know that there's a spot at the Kentucky Open into the British Open. There could be, but I did not check on that. There were 2 spots last week at the John Deere. And yeah, that cut, speaking of the cut, it's really cool to see Jonathan Bird make that cut. And you mentioned Lucas Glover over on the other side of the big pond. He missed it. Lucas, I was just in conversation with Michael Sims. Incidentally, Michael Sims made the cut in the Carolinas Amateur. I'll get to that in just a second, just a bit. But we got cool to see Kiz playing good again. And I'll tell you, I had a chance to speak with him at the John Deere. And we're talking about a local guy with absolutely a just wonderful heart for the game. He's kind. He's always helping folks out and approachable. You wouldn't have any idea that he's one of the greatest players in the game. And he's won, 4 or 5 times. And he's a Ryder Cup player. And Wesley, one of the things I definitely didn't call him right after and say, "Hey son, I'm proud of you. You played great coming in," because he's not quite ready for it just yet. But he did shoot 7 under today, and it wasn't the problem. Yesterday was the problem. The first 10 holes or 12 holes, and he's really in good shape. First time 5 or 6 years he's played, 5 years for sure, that he's played not hurt. And PGA Tour, we got to talking last week about the influence of the LIV Tour and what happened with all that. But I think we're seeing some of the benefits now. Young players, and just look at, you just mentioned Cootie. Say his first name again. Bring that back.
Oh, well, now I had Pearson Cootie is what I said.
Yeah, well, you probably got it. I just call him Pierce. I actually have never met him. I've met his granddaddy, Charles Coote, and while he was out watching a match. But, that's a great example. What happened at the John Deere last week, we watched them come to the house. These young players, they're tomorrow's superstars, and we are loaded with young players. And he's not the only one at the top. I have watched him for a number of years now, and I'm sitting there in disbelief just how good they are. They're not always posting the scores, but it seems to be coming together because they're getting a chance. If it weren't for the LIV Tour spreading out the talent, spreading out and giving – the LIV Tour is literally giving 70, 80 spots back to this country or back to the PGA Tour on a weekly basis, and that's big. These college kids make a difference. And not that I'm a fan of the LIV Tour either. Please don't get me wrong. I don't know that. What little I know, it's just another pro golf entity. And it's given opportunity for young players. So we're seeing how good they are. Oberg, by the way, I did meet him last summer, and this is a kind-hearted young fella. He's a big old tall guy. I'm looking up at him going, you know what? Who are you again? This is before he was selected, and he goes, yeah, I played at Texas Tech, and he was very kind. I'd never heard of the kid, and I did watch him hit a few balls, and I'm going, well, what am I looking at here? And sure enough, that's what we're looking at. One of the best in the world. And so, hey, I hear my music there, fellas. And it's been a fun, short, quick conversation for me, and I look forward to next week. Y'all have a great weekend. Until then, tee 'em high, shoot 'em low, and thank you for the chance.
Appreciate it, George.
Thank you, George. Another edition of Birdies and Bogeys in the books. Phil Kornblut returns on Monday. Follow us on Twitter at SportsTalkSC for all the updates.